And to finish out the important Friday night games, again, there's the Boise State Eastern Washington game, but right now that is not playoff, like that's not a game that has any sort of playoff relevance. Boise State might eventually get back on that list, but until the 30 teams that are certainly sitting in the group of 5 that are undefeated lose a game, then that game is not relevant. But talking about those undefeated teams, we got Northern Illinois, who's 1-0, traveling to Maryland, who's also 1-0. Maryland favored by 16.5 points in the Big Ten Network. Josh Holst went 12-16, threw for 101 yards for the Huskies, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Chavon Wright had 11 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. And Deary Rogers had 7 catches for 73 yards. Malik Washington for the Terrapins went 27-43, threw for 258 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. DeJuan Williams had 10 carries for 54 yards, and Shalik Knotts had 5 catches for 59 yards and a touchdown. Maryland is 2-1 against the Huskies all time. Last game did go to Maryland in 2014. The home team is 3-0 when they play, and Northern Illinois is 1-1 in one possession games against Maryland. Okay, so now all the stats are out of the way. This is a really important game for the MAC. If you're looking at it, if you do not know, the MAC is probably in the worst spot of the Group of 5 conferences. If you don't know, there's 30 undefeated Group of 5 teams that can technically make the college football playoff, right? If there's 31 if you include Delaware, but Delaware can't make it. A lot of that is in the Sun Belt and the American. The American has 9 teams that are currently sitting at undefeated and contending. The Sun Belt has 7. So 16 of those 30. 5 go to the Mountain West, 5 go to Conference USA, and MAC sits at 4. And while 4 is not that much lower than 5, I think that the MAC is in the worst spot of all the conferences. If you look at the Mountain West, right, they might have 5, but number one, they have a legit contender that a lot of people thought could compete at the beginning of the year with UNLV, and Air Force is kind of a sleeper in my opinion. And then in Conference USA, they have a really good Liberty team that can absolutely run the table, and then they have a Western Kentucky team that I think is really good and only should lose to LSU. And we'll talk about that later. But the MAC's in an interesting spot where they could easily be like there's 0 teams after this week. You're talking about the best shot is really Northern Illinois. If you look at the other teams, one of the 4 teams left standing is Kent State, and they barely survived Merrimack, right? Like, it's not like a great Kent State team. They're actually a pretty bad Kent State team. We're talking about Bowling Green and Central Michigan. Central Michigan, I honestly didn't hate what they showed against San Jose State, a pretty solid Group of 5 team in my opinion, but they are probably not going to beat Pitt, and they're definitely not going to beat Michigan in 2 weeks. So the real contenders are Bowling Green and Northern Illinois. I think Bowling Green is the better team of the 2, but they have the harder schedule. They have to play Cincinnati, and then they have to play another Power 4 team next week if they are able to get past Cincinnati. Northern Illinois goes on the road to Maryland, and that's going to be difficult. Like, that's not an easy task, but Northern Illinois draws the easier route with at Maryland and at Mississippi State. Again, the MAC is screwed. I'm probably not talking about them after this week. But the Huskies have a lot of the MAC's hopes riding on them. Like, again, if there was a team you would bet that could be 3-0 in the next 3 weeks, it would probably be Northern Illinois. Mainly because I don't think the other 3 could maybe do it. Bowling Green maybe, but they have a much harder schedule to have to deal with. Northern Illinois is going on the road to a Maryland team that, again, Maryland was not good last year. They were not. But they showed some nice things in their easy FCS victory. It'll be interesting to see how Maryland builds on that, right? Maryland is a team that, honestly, the schedule isn't insane for them. They are, again, we were talking about Maryland a couple years ago as the team that was going to prosper the most from not having to be on the same side as Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State. And we'll see if that's the case this year. They certainly looked better in their opener. Northern Illinois did not look great against Holy Cross, and again, I don't think this is going to be the Northern Illinois team that pulled off a stunner in Week 2 last year against Notre Dame. We'll see if that's the case. Northern Illinois absolutely needs this game. So does Maryland to an extent. If they want to go bowling this year, you kind of have to win your 3 out of conferences. Even though the in-conference doesn't seem to be an insane schedule, it's not like this insane gauntlet. It's definitely one you would like to have if you're Maryland. That being said, I do think Maryland is the better team. I'm not like the biggest Northern Illinois guy this year. I do think the MAC is going to have a rough year. I don't think this is going to be a year where MAC can legitimately put a team into the college football playoffs. So give me the Terrapins to win, and I like the Terrapins to cover at home.